What's up YouTube, it's Shanti Hall here, and for today's video I want to give you guys my early NBA power rankings. I'm only going to do the top 10 teams and we have a lot to talk about, so let's jump right into it. So at number 1 we have the reigning NBA champions, the Golden State Warriors. Coming into the season, I'm sure they were everybody's clear favorites. They were able to keep everything from their previous 2 championship runs, as well as add DeMarcus Cousins into the mix. Although I will say that I personally don't believe DeMarcus Cousins will be anywhere near the level we're used to seeing him at. But even with that being said, the Warriors have more than enough talent to win another championship this year and would still be the clear favorites had they signed Boogie or not. I think the real challenge for them is going to be dealing with complacency because it hurt them a little bit last year. It wouldn't surprise me to see them struggle at times this year because they're coasting. But if they do remain healthy and completely engaged this season, they're going to be extremely tough to beat. Okay, so now moving on to number 2, we have the Boston Celtics. If this team can stay healthy, I believe they have easily the best chance of beating the Warriors this season. They have 3 all-star caliber players with Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, and Al Horford. You also have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who are 2 young budding stars, along with Terry Rozier, who showed that he's a starting caliber point guard in the NBA, and he's going to be backing up Kyrie Irving. They were also able to re-sign Marcus Smart, who's an incredible defender, and Aaron Baines, who's a great backup big. That's honestly insane depth. I didn't even get to name everybody. It's no doubt going to be tough, but I really think they can give the Warriors a very competitive series and possibly win. That is if they get to the finals, of course. But that's really all I had to say about the Boston Celtics, so moving on to the third team in my power rankings, which is the Houston Rockets. So this offseason, the Rockets were able to bring back Chris Paul and Clint Capella, which is great because the Rockets were able to win 60 plus games last year with them as their core. They were also able to bring back Gerald Green, who was a great scorer for them off the bench, and they should be bringing Carmelo Anthony in for the veteran minimum very soon, which I know a lot of people won't like, but I think he's a much better fit with Houston than he was with the Thunder. Something that concerns me with the Rockets though is their defense. I think Trevor Ariza was a big part of what made the defense decent last year, and they lose him in free agency along with Luke Mbah-a-Moute. It just leads me to believe that they'll struggle against teams with decent wings. Alright, so that's all I had to say about the Houston Rockets. Then moving on to the team that I have at number 4, which is the Toronto Raptors. So obviously there was the big trade this offseason that sent DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl to San Antonio for Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green. I'm operating under the assumption that Kawhi Leonard is healthy and ready to play. And if that's true, the Raptors are a much improved team from last season. They've added a top 5 player to an already very solid roster, as well as Danny Green to replace DeMar DeRozan, and he's a very consistent 3-and-D player. On top of that, they still have Kyle Lowry, who's an all-star level point guard, and they were able to retain most of the bench that was so solid for them last season. They have the players to be one of the best defensive teams next season, as well as win the Eastern Conference. But all of that depends very heavily on how well Kawhi Leonard bounces back. So those are my thoughts on the Raptors. Now moving on to team number 5, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder. The big thing the Thunder did this offseason was re-sign Paul George, so they still have 2 all-stars there. But outside of PG, I think they made some really great moves to improve their roster. They were able to re-sign Jeremy Grant, who I think is a better fit for them at power forward than Carmelo Anthony was. They were also able to sign Nerlens Noel, who I think can be a very solid backup big man for them, which is something they really lacked last season. Another great move that they made was acquiring Dennis Schroeder through trade, and he'll play an important 6-man role for them. And on top of all of that, they're getting Andre Roberson back from injury, and he's a very important part of their defense. Overall, I'd say the roster is just much improved from last year, and I expect them to be a more consistent team. Alright, but moving on, the team that I have 6th in my power rankings is the Philadelphia 76ers. With Ben Simmons going into his 2nd year and Joel Embiid going into his 3rd, I expect them both to be much improved. In fact, I should probably say that I expect them both to be all-stars. Outside of that, they have Dario Saric, who should have another very productive season, as well as Markelle Fultz, who should now be completely healthy and ready to play. They were also able to re-sign JJ Redick, who had a really big season for them last year. And they traded for Wilson Chandler, who will serve as a solid backup forward. So overall, I'd say this team has a very good mix of young, very talented players and veterans who can contribute immediately. So unless one of their young stars regresses, this team will be one of the best in the East. That's all I'm going to say about the Sixers. So at number 7, we have the Utah Jazz. Jazz. Now, outside of the Jazz re-signing Derek Favors and drafting Grayson Allen, they didn't do much this offseason. Not saying that those moves aren't important, both those players will be very impactful during games. But what's even more important for the Jazz is that they're going to have Rudy Gobert from the beginning of the year, and they have Donovan Mitchell going into his second season. Just those two should help them get off to a much better start than they did last season. They're also going to have Jay Crowder for the whole year now, and Dante Exum is going to be healthy. They've built a really solid roster, and them being consistent with it is definitely going to help them see improvement. That's really all I have to say for the Jazz, so moving on to the team that I have at number 8, which is the San Antonio Spurs. So like I said earlier, the big news for the Spurs was them trading for DeMar DeRozan, which is great because now they're playing with 2 All-Stars again. This team was a 7 seed last year with LaMarcus Aldridge leading them, but now with DeRozan there, he has someone to help take some of the responsibility. They were also able to sign Marco Bellinelli, who will provide some much needed scoring off the bench. However, they did lose Tony Parker, who is still a solid backup point guard in the NBA, and Kyle Anderson, who gave them good minutes off the bench. Those losses definitely hurt their depth, but overall, I still believe they're a better team this year. Alright, so moving on, the team I have at number 9 is the New Orleans Pelicans. So this offseason, the Pelicans ended up losing DeMarcus Cousins, which in my opinion is fine because he wasn't that great of a fit anyway. They signed Julius Randle to replace him, and I think he's going to mesh a lot better with this team. They were also able to sign Elfrid Payton to replace Rajon Rondo, and I think he's a decent fit as well. Adding these players to the core of Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday should make the Pelicans a slightly better team than they were last year. Alright, so now moving on to the last team in my power rankings, we have the Los Angeles Lakers. So they signed LeBron James this offseason, and that's probably the biggest move you could possibly make in free agency. Adding him to a talented group of young players who I assume have improved this offseason makes the Lakers a very competitive team. The Lakers were also able to add a bunch of talented veterans like Rondo and Michael Beasley to complement these young players and LeBron. I think this team may struggle a bit at first due to some chemistry issues, but over time they'll become a team to watch out for. But those are my power rankings, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave me a like. If you enjoy NBA content in general, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys next time.